In the remakes of Generation 3, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, they made a lot of changes and added in a lot of features. One of my personal favourite features was the Delta episode at the end after you've done the League. In there we were introduced to a fascinating character, Zinnia, whose origins are never explained. Today I'm going to try and find out if we can find out who she is, where she's from, and who exactly Aster is. Just a quick reminder before we begin that the manga and the games are in a completely different canon, so evidence from the manga will not be used and can't be used to disprove this. So first of all, what do we know about Zinnia? She first appears in the story mode, the main story, where she is working for the villain team. So if you're an Omega Ruby, then she's working for Team Magma, Alpha Sapphire she's working for Team Aqua. She seems to be a little bit higher than a grunt, as she directly reports to the admin of the game. After you complete the League, you learn that she was actually just there undercover trying to awaken the super ancient Pokemon so that Rayquaza would come and stop them. She then becomes a large part of the Delta episode where she's trying to summon Rayquaza to stop the meteor that's going to destroy the planet. She's recognised as the Lawkeeper of the Draconids, and she is supposed to be the one that summons Rayquaza, and other than that we don't really know that much about her past. To match with her being a Draconid, she's got a pretty much full dragon type team, with the exception of her Whisper named Aster that we'll go into more detail about later. She also seems to have an intense knowledge of things that are unknown to most people in the Pokemon universe, with a specific knowledge in parallel universes. There is quite a few unanswered questions about her, and a few things that stand out as odd to me. The first thing is that she knew the meteor was coming. Now, it was mentioned that it was in a prophecy, but she knew exactly when it was coming. She knew it was coming now, before anyone else, before it was picked up by Mostik, before it was picked up by anyone she knew. And she knew for a fair while because she had infiltrated the villain team before the events of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. And not just as a low-level grunt, she actually managed to report directly to the admins and have influence enough to change their plan to make it go from being awakening Groudon or Kyogre to awakening Primals. So she must have known for a fair amount of time in order to get all of that in place. There is also a very odd scene when your character first meets her. She says, "It is our first real meeting, right?" Yeah, that's right, of course it is. And she seems somewhat confused, as if this wasn't your first meeting. Now, in the game, you've never met her. She's observed you from afar, so maybe that's what it is, but still, she shouldn't be confused about whether this is the first meeting or not. After all, the two of you have never spoke directly. There is another part that sort of is very confusing, where in the very opening, when you first sort of see her taking off her uniform, she says, "I swear I will protect you, Aster." Now, although she does end up saving our Pokemon world, and she always had a plan, she ends up destroying the backup plan. She basically risks our Pokemon world in order to save another. Now, if she was intent on protecting someone in this universe, why would she do that? Surely she would keep that backup plan in place and still do her plan to try and save both worlds. Unless the person she's trying to protect isn't from this universe. What if the person she's trying to protect is from the original universe? During the Delta episode, Zinnia all but confirms that the universe of Omega Ruby is a parallel version of the Ruby version. Now, it seems to me that she seems to have an intense knowledge of parallel universes and of a specific different universe, the one that the meteor was going to be going to. Admittedly, we don't get that much information about it. The main things that we learn is that it's very similar to in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. It's still Hoenn. The events happen with Magma and Aqua pretty much the same. We also learn that 3,000 years ago the war never happened, so the ultimate weapon was never built, and infinity energy was never discovered or looked into, and also Mega Evolution was unknown. Now that sounds pretty much exactly like Ruby and Sapphire to me. So, my theory as to who Zinnia is and where she's from is quite simple. I think she originates from the original Generation 3 universes, so Ruby or Sapphire. One day in the Ruby and Sapphire universe, a meteor suddenly appears in the sky, and the people of that universe don't have the technology to stop it. It just appears from nowhere through a bridge to a parallel universe. So, just like in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, when they find the meteor, they turn around and the world's best and brightest try to fix it. This includes the champion. This includes the Lawkeeper of the Draconoids. They formulate a plan in which somebody goes through the parallel world bridge to reach the Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire universes. And then it's their job to stop them. Maybe they do it with the help of Rayquaza, which is why Zinnia is the one that does it, because as Lawkeeper of the Draconids, she would be the one to control Rayquaza. So, Zinnia, using the bridges between parallel universes, ends up in the Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire universe, and then she's there and she has enough time to put a stop to it, and she knows how to. She knows that she wants to get Rayquaza to destroy the meteorite before it gets sent back. So she does what she needs to. She joins the villain team. She tries to make it work that way. But then, of course, the player stops. The player who she knows from the original universe. That's why, when you first meet her, she is confused about if this is your first real meeting or not. Of course, once Zinnia passed through, she would have no way back because that bridge would never be there. So she has to leave her entire life behind. All of her friends, all of her family, and maybe even a daughter. Because Aster is the person she's doing it for. Aster, who she named him Whisper after. Aster, who she even on occasion slips up and calls her daughter. That's why she's willing to risk our universe to save a different one, because she's from there and that's where her daughter got left. That's why she swears to protect Aster, yet she also says lines like, "I loved her with everything I had, but I still lost her." Because even if she's still alive, even if Zinnia succeeded in protecting her, Zinnia can't get back home. So she still lost her daughter. And that's also why when she succeeds, she has to go off to try and find herself, because ultimately she succeeded and she has done fantastic and she has managed to save everyone she cares about. But that doesn't mean that she's still with them. That doesn't mean she hasn't lost everything. But at least she can go ahead and try and forge her new life, and knowing that she has managed to save everyone, and she can be happy in her success. Of course, that's just my opinion. Feel free to leave yours in the comments below. I'd love to hear other takes on this theory. Zinnia is one of the more fascinating characters in my opinion. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope that you've enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to leave a like or subscribe, where I will continually be doing lots of new Pokemon content, as well as Doctor Who and lots of other coverage.